like to call this meeting to order of the Big Plains Water and Sewer Special Service System. You please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Ross Gregerson, present.
Neil Duckton, present.
Harold Merritt, present.
Marty Elizabeth, present.
And Kenny is excused.
Yeah.
And so we'll go to the first item on the agenda. Activity report. Mr. Harris, what have you been up to?
No good. So, consumer confidence reports are at, and I'd just like to elaborate a little bit on, because I've had a few phone calls from citizens that have actually looked at them. And one of the questions that I had was, I had a gentleman call me and wonder how come that I was releasing a consumer confidence report for 2019 when some sampling hadn't been since 2015. So I just wanted everybody to know that the state sets up our sampling schedule, and that's just from history of how we've performed with the quality of our water out of our well. So I have some samples that have to be done quarterly, some samples that have to be done every 6 months. I have some that have to be done yearly. Some are 3 years, some are 6 years, and some are 9 years. So the ones that would be like from 2015 would be, because that's what that schedule is on. So in other words, it's been 4 years since I've done that. So I think it's the nitrates and the nitrites, and I think it's the pesticides on this side. That we're only every 6 years that we have to do those type of samples. So anybody that looks at that consumer confidence report and kind of goes, this is the consumer confidence report for 2019, understand that I've got different schedulings that's set up by the state of when it has to be sampled. So they are current. That is what the results are. It's just that they're on different schedules, because we generally have no detects for about 96% of the components that are in our waters, because we just don't have anything in there. We're doing quarterly on well 59 because it's a new startup, and so the state's got to see a track record of having samples that are in compliance with levels for the VOCs, pesticides, nitrates, nitrites. All of those different things, and then as soon as they see that we're either no detect or we're underneath the EPA's standards, then they will move us to what they see fit. And that could be yearly, it could be 3 years, it could be 6 years. But they are the folks that make up my scheduling for how often I do sampling. And if anybody's looked at that, you'll see that we were under with our EPA standards on everything that we tested for. We have some. I think it was the sodium, if I remember right, that came back a little bit high. Was it sodium? You and I looked at that. I think it was the sodium that came back high on the quarterly from 59, but that could just be a little blurb that happened inside the well itself, in the aquifer itself. But that was in blue, so it's just kind of a It's kind of a just like a caution thing. But the state. I went up and did the 2020 IPS update training that I did 2 weeks ago, I think now, and so I went through all of that with those folks, and I got a lot of stuff taken off of our IPS report that was old stuff, clear from 2009, 2008, that had nothing to do with us. I sent them pictures of the ladder that you guys helped get put up, and that our vents are turned down, and so all of those will come off our IPS report. So in 2020, they're going to switch the way that they put dings onto your IPS. So let's just say, like for the ladder thing, for instance, we've been getting hit every year for 5 points on each tank. So if that ladder wasn't done, those 5 points go to 45 points in 2020. So because what they're trying to do is come more in line with what the EPA is doing for their point system, so they kind of match a little bit more. So that's the training that I did, and so violations well, just to put it shortly, are gonna be immense when they happen. There'll be big points put across, to the system, when you, if we have any violations, whether it be administration or sampling or anything like that.
We'll cover this a little bit later, but the security fence, part of this report or anything that we get dinged on?
The 59?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, they're gonna start cracking down on all of the things to do with security when it comes into 2020. So razor wire, we don't have a sanitary survey for Cedar Point or for Apple Valley for 2 more years. But as I've discussed with you, I got Paul Wright breathing down my neck for one for Canaan. So just, quick briefing on Canaan. We're technically supposed to have fencing around all of our springs. We're supposed to have 10 feet of clay over the top of them. There's all kinds of things that we need to take care of in short order. Me having the conversations, let them know where we were at with Canaan, which is gonna keep them off of our back. We're not gonna have to get points. I just need to do what I normally do, and I'm the first person to raise my hand and tell on myself and keep those folks informed. So they're very appreciative, and that's what they said is, as long as you stay in this communication like you do with us, we will work with you on anything that you need to work, that you folks need to do. They know what our situation is down here. I got a board and one guy, and we don't have a lot of money, so they're sympathetic to a point. Of course, they have a job to do also, because the whole point is to have safe water into the system, but we don't have anything close for violations for that. But they are gonna start making all systems come in a little bit more closer conformity with what the EPA is actually asking for.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. I'm glad all is going well. Another item we talked about is, did you get some information on the road repairs so we could have some?
Yes, I did measurements. We've only got, we've got 28 square feet that we've got to do for our patches. I'll be able to get a load of cold patch. Will come up next Tuesday, and that will cost us about $300, and then I'll just dig those out and patch them.
Do you need some help doing that?
I think I'll be all right. If I do, I'll grab you.
Okay.
Yeah, I just got to dig them out and take the. I'm gonna try to arrange it so that when the truck comes, when the cold patch is still hot, so I don't have to take a torch out and heat it. I'm gonna have them just kind of. I'll take the backhoe and get a load out of it right as the truck is dumping, and then I'll have all of these prepped just to be able to dump them right in. So, yeah, we'll be roughly like around probably $500 for fixing our patches, probably somewhere in there on the high side.
Yeah, I'd like to be available if you need me, so I'll kind of put that on my calendar for.
I appreciate it. And then, like I said, with Ross and Harold's and Price Nelson's help, we got the safety cage put on those tanks up there, which was awesome. Much appreciated of you guys. Once again, you guys are volunteers, and you guys are all impressive for as mobile as you guys, especially you, Ross.
First old?
Hey, I didn't say that. I didn't use the old word. I just said you guys are just impressive. But yeah, you crawling around like that thing on a monkey. But anyways, yeah, we got that all put in, and Price gave us a ripping deal on it. And in fact, I used the cage again today. So.
Good. All right, anything else, Dale, you want to share with us? Or?
No, other than that, just a lot of blue staking. The Specialized Communications come through town. They're giving me blue stakes about every 2 weeks at 38 blue stakes a pop. So in fact, I just got, I got another 58 blue stakes this afternoon between Tom Beecher and Specialized Communication, because what they're doing along 59. But I have gotten a hold of Todd Leichman, is his last name, and let him know that I'm not going to clear areas anymore. I'm just going to mark where my utilities come across 59, and then I'm not going to spend a day going and clearing, and he's good with that. And I said, I've only got so many crossings. Me going out and painting out in the middle of nowhere where I don't even have utilities for a half a mile, are you good with that? And he said he was good with it.
You devoted any thought to a way for us to make some money on this and not to
yeah, there's no way to make, we paid for that, 94 cents a blue stake.
Well, and it's all your time and chewing up half a day.
Yep, that's just and it's by law. We have to be part of 911 of 811. We got to be part of blue stakes. So it is what it is. I talked to Sherry, which is the lady that kind of sets up all the blue staking and stuff, and she said, no, you can't put that off on the contract. I mean, I've talked with Todd and I've said, I'm one guy. Every time you send all of these things in, I've got a day that I've got to go out and paint stuff, and it's costing us money to do that. They got held up, so he gave me the whole story. They started to dig on the Arizona line, and they found pottery, and they found Indian artifacts. So BLM came in and held them up. That's why they just keep doing that, because they haven't known. Every week, the BLM has been saying, I think next week we'll be able to set you guys loose, and then they don't send them loose. So then his blue stake expires in 2 weeks, and by law, he's got to redo his ticket. So that's what held him up. As you guys can see, they're clear down. They're heading back past Big Plains Road down here now. They've been romping on it now, but they'll come back. All of where, like I've done blue staking, or anybody's driveways, they will come back with a mini X, and they're already doing that. I tried a couple of times a week, go and check and see where they're at. And I haven't been going by their blue stake. I've just a couple of times a week just went out and refreshed our crossings, because last thing I want them to do is digging through a 12-inch main.
Yeah.
They might get to fix it, but the heartache gets to come to us.
So, Mr. Chairman, can we talk about the telemetry stuff?
Yeah.
Is that,
You want it? Yeah.
what's going on and what if we need to upgrade or where we are on that?
Well, what we just need to do is figure out, when we put in that slow start, stuff got disconnected. And so it's not talking to that soft start, which in turn, because that Apple Valley 1 relays down to Apple Valley 2. So if the signal doesn't happen, of course, in this building, I don't get it down in that other building. I couldn't get either one of my pumps to come on. And so it seemed that when I started coming over here, that Lloyd had given me another call back, because Lloyd's been very helpful on the phone, let's put it that way. But he drew me a schematic. I did it all into the toggle switch today, and I let my tank get pretty low. It should have clicked on, and neither one of them went.
Yeah.
So I talked to Lloyd. Lloyd says he's just going to have to come back up and put his eyes back on it and figure out how come we're not. Because I'm communicating. I've got lights flashing up at that box. I've got lights flashing at so I know that I'm getting a signal. I'm just not getting the action to happen in the pump house. But to elaborate on that a little bit, because this has kind of stuck me back into the telemetry that we were kind of pounding on here about 2.5 years ago, is that Bill King, a guy that I've known for a long time, did all my stuff in Springdale, did my stuff for the brewery. He was in the middle of setting all of this stuff up for us, and he died of cancer. So what we were working towards is that I would be able to control everything from a laptop. And quite honestly, I'd like to reprice that and start to get back onto that path, so that I can start stop pumps, I can monitor everything, totally remotely. And it saved me some time during the day of having to man pumps. There was a safety recall, an engineering safety recall on those transmitters, the 0 to 50s, that just barely came back out. They just re-released them here like 2 months ago. So I've been manually running that for a year. So I've been weekends, having to go turn stuff on, go back and forth, do all of that. So yeah, I'd like to get it back into the automation, and kind of, like Lloyd said, you guys need to get into the nowadays. We're still a little archaic in what we're doing for our communication. And then I'd like to get some point that we can entertain the same thing with Cedar Point. The thing is that I've got to put 59 to waste for a period of time. So we of course need a auto to waste, and of course an auto into the system before we can be able to even automate that. And then we've got a line of sight problem to go from 59 to get around that toe to get to the. And so what Bill was saying is that Bill would have been able to put like a little bit of a repeater that he could be able to hit that and then ping that off and get up to that. But that's something I'll just talk with Lloyd. Lloyd's, I think he's pretty varied right now with what's going on in Pine Valley. He said he's starting up a whole big system up there. But
well, the other thing,
I would like to get some pricing together and then come towards you guys here in a couple of months and start getting that conversation going again, because we were really on it there for a little bit, and then when Bill passed away, it just kind of.
well, it doesn't make sense to wear out a truck running back and forth checking tanks. When
Yeah.
you could kill a lot right from your house.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Monitor
Yeah.
and need to be.
Yeah.
Okay, but we already have the valve at 59 to go.
One
to
of
waste,
them, we just need
right?
another one. We need one to auto to waste, and that one needs to close, and we need an auto to open. So we've only got one valve, we need two auto.
Why do you need two?
Because you got auto to waste.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it would be normally,
If you got your valve open and you do auto to waste and you haven't been able to shut that off, all you're doing is bringing back the water out of the system. You're not getting the well. So you're not actually flushing that to waste, because now you're feeding back. So that valve has to be shut off. That the well's feeding into the main line. That's gotta be off. The filter to waste has got to, the well to waste has got to initiate. It runs for whatever time that we've determined that it's gonna run. That comes back and closes, then that auto valve opens up.
I think you do that with, we could talk about this, but I think you do that with the check valve in the main line, while that water can come back, and then the valve just opens and closes to waste.
But that's the way that we were setting it up before, if we were gonna set it before, and that would keep me from not actually being able to go to waste, because I'd be on the backside of that check valve. One of these days, we just need to go to the well building, and I'll point out everything that what I'm talking about, and then, you've been around the block, let's educate each other and have that conversation.
Yeah, we can go up there and get in the building and see what we got.
Yeah, all we need to do, the way that, I set up 16 of them for the town of Springville. You gotta have an auto into the system, you gotta have an auto into waste. So that manual valve that we have, we just need to take that manual valve, put an auto to waste, and put an auto to system, and then we're good. We just need another auto valve, that's all we need.
Now, that auto valve that's up there, they're about $1,500 a piece, aren't they?
They're more than that, aren't they?
Yeah, I think that was 2,300.
Yeah.
2,300.
Yeah.
I'm sure we don't need them. Yeah, we'll look at that.
Thanks, Dale, though, I mean, I know it's a lot of effort to be chasing the system around manually.
It's what I signed on for, but
I know
when you
that.
kinda wanna do stuff on your, but I'm not complaining, we just need to get there is all.
Yeah, we need to solve that.
Drop it, Dale, we want to keep you going.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm getting grayer.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's.
Okay, along this same line, why don't you call Ross and me, and someday when you have some time, and we'll all meet at 59 and
Get a
iron
game
this
plan.
out.
Okay.
And that way we'll know what we're doing and
Yeah.
go from there. And if we're doing telemetry, at least, roll it all in together.
Yeah.
Okay. We're fortunate enough to have our engineer with us this evening, and since he's here, I'd like to ask him some questions, if I may. Has there been any movement or any information about the Gooseberry project recently?
Yeah, so they've been in contact with us, inquiring about the water system. They have in their agreement to build a water storage tank on our behalf and make the connection for that system. So we are in the process of identifying the optimum site for that tank. And then we'll be back in contact with them for whatever construction documents they'll provide us and that type of thing. But right now, we're zeroed in on tank siting and doing some modeling related to that to just make sure that the tank that we have, the site that we have identified works the way we believe it's going to work. And also the booster station that is part of their development agreement as well with the water district. I'm looking for some sizing on that and some details associated with that. So yeah, they're moving along.
Okay, yeah, if you could stay within I think the fenced-in area would be fine if it'll work. It'd be a lot easier to deal with, but whatever they want to do is fine.
Now, I'm coordinating some surveying on that. It'll be at their expense, but I want to make sure that the property lines are clearly delineated, consistent with how we want to set the tanks so that there are no issues that way. And we'll also have some easements that we'll need to obtain as part of that.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else going on? Is that, that's about it?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Rod.
Yeah.
Item number 2, Keenan Storage. The Webb family, or the previous owners of Keenan, have stockpiles of parts scattered all over the place, and they have some in storage in some of their buildings, and have decided that, and we did agree to take those parts out, pipe and valves and fittings and what have yous, so they could use their own building. And we haven't been very prompt on that, so I've talked to Ross about looking for a container. He's the procurement guy for all these odds and ends. So the Keenan Storage is a cargo container to be placed by the water storage tank back in the trees where it'll be out of sight. But have you?
Well, yeah, I have a beat on one and it hasn't come through. I'm about $3,300 over 40-foot wind and water tight.
I think 20 will do us.
Yeah, but you pay.
Well, we're gonna put the four-wheeler in, yeah, we
Yeah,
should do.
and you pay almost as much for 20 as you
Yeah.
do for 40.
Yeah, I agree.
How much did you say it was?
About 3,300.
Delivered?
Yeah, delivered, yeah.
I would motion that we go ahead and try to procure a 40-foot cargo container for the Keenan Storage by the water tank, put in our materials and our four-wheeler.
Can I add something, Harold?
Yes.
Just so the board's aware, the parts that Webb's have are probably $2,000 worth in brand new parts that they're just giving to us. We didn't buy that, so I just want that to be clear, is that we're gaining a lot of parts that we will need.
And they'll disappear if we don't get them.
Exactly, yep, and yep.
Okay.
He wants them out of his buildings.
Okay. So I'd make a motion that we go ahead and buy a 40-foot container in the $3,500 range, best we can do. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Vote.
Aye.
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 I was thinking we could have a discussion on it real quick. How's that going to fit in with our town policies as far as storage containers? Is that anything we got to worry about? I mean, how far up is it and how tucked away is it?
It's, the tanks are 24 feet high, aren't they? Are those tanks the same height as these?
No, because there's a, no.
So they would
They're
be
not.
18 feet high?
Yeah, exactly.
So the tanks, the Keenan tanks are 18 feet high, and you can't see them from the road.
Okay.
And so the container will sit right by the tank, and we have a lease on that property. They didn't want to sell the property, so.
Well, it's probably, say it's commercial, so I'll say I as well.
Okay.
It'll be, Marty, it's like a forest around that. So I mean, I've already kind of picked out a spot that they've been using for a road. Yeah, you won't, yeah, nobody will be able to, except for the Webbs, they might be able to see it, but they got a bunch of them up in there, so I think they would care less if there was another container.
Yeah, Kurt's already said that it was fine with him.
Yeah.
Okay. Another thing that Ross was working on, have you talked to some well drillers, you and Dale?
I haven't gotten.
You haven't got any.
Yeah, and I got involved in the telemetry, I apologize, he never called me back. I left a voicemail and a message with a lady that answered their landline phone.
Then let's do this. Why don't we go up to the pump house and get a number off of one of those old pump ends or something, or we.
Research that serial
we'll figure it
number.
out. Yeah, it'd be nice if they give us the curve, but.
Yeah.
So we'll have that for next meeting, okay?
Okay.
One way or another.
All right, we need to do that, and in connection with that, since Ben is here, I've discussed it briefly with him, that PTIF funding would be available for reworking these pumps in that system. And the container as well, since that's part of the system containing the parts that keeps the system going.
Yeah, the requirements for use of those funds is just essentially to benefit the system as a whole. It wasn't allocated to a certain project, so.
Right, no, okay, so those funds are still there. If you and Dale could work on getting some bids, what we're trying to do is get Cookwell and Jessicwell back up in tip-top shape with these funds that we have that were part of the 59 project that are still in the mix and they're to be used out there, and so reworking the pumps. In the long view on this is that those are single-phase pumps. And if we want to have a generator at some point, we have 3-phase pumps down here. So we'd have to have 2 generating systems to keep the whole thing going. The new system that we're putting in Cedar Point is going to be 3-phase for all the pumps. So we could have one mobile generator. We could run the pumps at Cedar Point, pull it down here to Apple Valley, plug it in and run these pumps. The way it is now is 3-phase and single-phase. In an emergency and everybody going every direction, we could hit some real problems. So we're changing all the panels and electrical parts and that sort of thing.
Well, plus the expense of running single-phase pumps, especially large ones, and the expense of replacing single-phase pumps in order to way more than 3-phase. So it's a win-win on all 3 sides.
So that's what this is all about, bringing it up to standard.
Mr. Chairman, I can create this bid format. I mean, I can work with you, Dale, but I can just do it. I just didn't have the curves. If I get the curves,
Yeah.
and some information on the well, that's no problem creating that, the bid to go out.
Okay. Yeah, we'll just, like you say, we'll get the number figured out. Obviously, I don't know why we don't get calls back.
Okay.
Well, if we could do that and even if we have to have a special meeting of some sort, my only concern is to do this while it's dry. If we have a wet fall, we could lose everybody up there. So we need to get after it before it gets out of hand.
Okay.
Okay.
Ron,
Yes, question back here.
Oh, yeah, Rob?
Just in connection with that, just as a reminder, since it was the topic, there is a generator that is required for the Gooseberry system. Under the design criteria that we established, that will be a mobile generator, but it will be housed in a protected building at the booster station at the bottom of the hill on the Gooseberry property. That will be our generator and available for emergencies anywhere in the system.
And that'll be 3-phase?
Yeah.
Yes. Wow.
Diesel
Done
generator.
by it. You right there?
Better be-
Diesel generator, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, could I just a couple of things. You mentioned that when it gets wet and the condition of the roads, is it something we can work into? We got a dump truck now, haul some cinders, get that road so it's passable in the time. Is that feasibility?
When you were talking about weather, are you talking about Canaan, or are you talking about getting up to the Jessup Well and
Just the Jessup Well, mostly what it is the roads are fairly good. But when you open the gate and back up to the pump itself, it's all sand and
it's all
dirt.
clay? What I just need to do is the same thing we did when we upgraded this other building. I mean, I put 10 inches of peat gravel on top of that, and I have no problems at all around that well. So when we pull out of doing all of that work, we need to put that peat gravel in there afterwards, because we're just gonna be in there doing all kinds of different things. We should stick that peat gravel in there.
I think
If
that's
it's
a previous
clay-
conversation we had, we're talking about Canaan, that road gets nasty. It's all clay.
Well, it's all sand, so the cinders are worthless when it comes to sand. All it does is just disappears into I mean, you can look at when you come around that corner in Bubbling Wells by the Cook Well, because that's where all that heavy sand is in. All of that cinder got put down is just literally turned into sand, just because there's no sub to be able to hold it. So that whole road going up to Kurtz is literally just it's like driving, in fact, it's actually worse when it's dry than when it's wet. I mean, I have to put in 4-wheel drive right before I get to the tanks because it's so sandy. But on that note, one of the things we agreed to with the Webbs is that we would take the grader up there a couple of times a year and hit that road, and we still need to do that. that road needs to be widened, I need to put a crown on that and give it bar ditches, because all we've got this going on right now.
And they used to drag on it for a long time
Yeah.
and just worked it down.
Yeah, yeah, if you're not creating that crown on your road's just gonna fold in on you.
Okay, well, that's something to, as we get these other things caught up a little bit, if the fall gets a little closer and we get into the well business, we better get into the road business first.
Yeah.
Maybe then start to dump some stuff there up next to the casing so that the truck can get in there and get
Yeah.
back out.
Yeah.
Anything else, Marty?
Nope.
On the bidding that we talked about, and it's in the notes or the minutes, we had 3 people for the fence. We had Andrew Black, Kirkland, and the board. The board has faded as far as I know. So, I think we're down to 2 participants, the cheapest of which is Andrew Black by about $500. I have his bid here. So I would propose that we accept Andrew Black's fencing bid and go ahead and get in compliance with 59 and an upgrade with razor wire on AV 1 and 2.
Cool. We have all of that for AV 1 and 2. It's inside of number 2, so we have all the parts. We just need Andrew to run that razor wire.
Okay, do I have a second on that?
What's the bid?
3,200. It's $2,000 for material, $1,200 for labor.
I second.
Okay,
Aye.
vote.
Aye.
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 Okay, and I'll give you this. As a matter of fact, you can have it right now, and that way I'll show you what he put on there to provide. And then, yeah, if your filing system in the back seat of your truck fails, you can find it on the computer.
It's really complicated.
Big Plains audit engagement with Hinton Burdick. It's time for the audit. I was informed, so I would motion that we engage Hinton Burdick to have them do the audit for the last fiscal year that just ended. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, consent calendar. I've gone through this and I didn't see anything that I had any issues with. So
A motion, we accept the consent calendar.
okay, do I have a second?
I second.
Vote?
Aye.
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 Okay,
Do we have to do it for each one?
I think we're all present all those times.
Okay.
It does work. Approval of the minutes of June 6th.
I need to ask a question on this, on the page where it says the district currently carries about $900,000 in water rights. The district must be pursuing the purchase of rights from the bank as water shares are sold. That's really not a correct statement, is it?
Well, we do, as we sell water out of the bank, then we have to replace it, but, the 900,000 figure, the water rights, I can't make a definitive statement on this other than the fact that we do need to purchase some. We have sold some that we haven't repurchased. But it's, where are we at, 10, 12 acre feet?
Yeah, right around there, it's $4,800, or $48,000 last.
Yeah, so we're nowhere near this 900,000, that's misleading, but I talked to Rod, and I've told him that we need to get all of this gathered up. And we have a meeting scheduled for next week at some point. We haven't decided on the day or time. But he and other folks in Ben Rouge to try to get this thing tightened up. So that's kind of where that is. If you have anything else other than that?
Well, it was just, my understanding, don't we require people to bring water rights? I mean, when they hook up, I mean, or is this a different issue than what was, maybe I don't understand what this is.
This is, the question is from the minutes of the meeting.
Yeah,
That $900,000 is the amount of water rights that we have booked on the balance sheet.
we did this.
Financials.
Yeah.
So that's essentially the carrying value of those assets. And then acquiring water rights when somebody pays the $4,000, or when they bring 1 acre foot of water, that should increase that carrying value of those assets because we're bringing on more water rights underneath the
Okay.
So as far as the minutes are concerned though, if you are concerned with the way it's worded, we can make that change, if you wanted to, so you decide how you want that worded. Or if you wanna just take it out altogether, I mean.
If I could clarify something, Ben and I have been digging into this for a few months. We've been trying to get some of this information from Rod as well, and all we can find in Big Plains name is 300 water rights, thereabouts, 303 or whatever the number is. And I think it's maybe shy from maybe what we should have based on the standbys and everything else we have. And the 4,000 we've been collecting, we have not been buying water rights. We've been spending that money otherwise and not buying rights with it. And so that's what this was about, was changing that policy where every time we take in for that, let's make sure it's viable, right?
And is that the discussion that will be happening next week? Is the action that needs to be taken there?
Yes.
I'm just wondering if it's on the accounting side, I'd like to participate if
Yeah.
possible.
It's at the point where we don't really know how we're gonna approach this. Some of the issues are things that you've seen float through your office, and the mayor's probably seen. There's somebody who purchased a connection, or however they phrased it, back in 2002. And so that was way before our time here. And they say, we paid for it, we gave good money to such and so, we'd like this connection. And so we're looking for the water to satisfy that. We're not having an issue with actually making the connection and providing the water, but who is gonna pony up the water right? And so the discussion is gonna be, who are these people that signed off on these documents? Who did they represent? And what organization is responsible? How did this all evolve through name changes and on and on and on, and ownership? Somebody's still got a hold of it somewhere. And so the paper chase to try to get to the mother organization of where this water issue is the genesis of all of these problems. Because they seem to be pretty much in the same time frame, pretty much same area. And I can understand it. There's one fellow that has 25 acre feet of water, and nobody really knows where it came from. I mean, he has a document that was signed, and I don't recognize the people involved. So we're gonna do some backtracking, finding out where that's at, rather than just take the water out of our system and to satisfy that and see if it's a legitimate claim. So I can't really give you an answer as to, we will get at the accounting at some point. But we gotta find out who to talk to first, and who to chase down on all of this. So it's gonna take, we have assumed some things, that it was all part of Cedar Point and Red Rock and Rimrock and so on, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. So that's kind of where we're at. It's not a great deal, but it runs into, we probably out there $200,000 that we get a nail down.
Okay, I make a motion, we approve the June 6, 2019 minutes.
Second,
One second motion.
vote,
Aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Make a motion to adjourn, do I have a second?
Second.
Vote,
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's where the water is.
I'll just catch up. Awesome. So how's your wife? She's all right? Yeah, I just wanted to tell you about a few things. We have a few things that I need you to make me feel comfortable with what's going to happen. I like it, but there's some weird stuff going on the last couple of days that was just kind of like.
So his family is.
Oh, negative.
Well, Greg is
Greg is
It's my turn. So.